My name is Bruce Allen Cromell Jr. and I was a interior communications electrician's third class when I left the Navy. In 1990 we had a RimPac, which is a 2-month cruise. The PAC-X was a 2-month cruise, RimPac's a 2-month cruise. RimPac is basically another military exercise with the Rim nations of the Pacific where we go out to Hawaii and we basically play war games. And like I said, New Zealand, all the countries I mentioned before for PAC-X were there at RimPac. So we made 3 port stops in Pearl Harbor, and we did exercises. The thing that's memorable about that trip is we were pretending to be a rock on the side of Maui. We were right up against Maui, and there were these booze cruises kind of things, tourist cruises going around us, small ships, you know. One of the ones had quite a few girls on it, and they were showing their patriotism by they pulled the tops off. And I've never seen so many guys move from one side of the ship to another side of the ship since then. But I remember the captain got on the 1MC and thanked them for their patriotism, and then we went out and we destroyed apparently the aircraft carrier battle group. So that was pretty much that trip. And after that, I think we went to Seattle for Fleet Week, and we did a stint in San Diego. And we started then training for, we had a Westpac cruise that was going to happen in 1991, or actually 1990, I'm sorry. No, yeah. And then Saddam invaded Kuwait, so that plan got scrapped. And then they changed our Westpac to basically, instead of going to a lot of really nice ports, we were going to go to Hawaii, which is standard. You always hit Hawaii to and from a Westpac. And then Philippines, Thailand, and then the Gulf, and then Australia when we got back. So we left in November of 1990. We went to Hawaii, and it was right around Thanksgiving, and our main reefer space was flooded. A fire main broke and damaged all of the motors that ran the compressors for all the refrigerators, basically. They call them reefers. So basically, we had to unload all the stores that we loaded before we left. We had to unload in Hawaii, all our frozen food, basically, which is like, I think, 5 or 6 storerooms. So we had 4 or 5 tractor trailers on the dock, on the pier, and you have to manually take this stuff off. There's no cranes or anything. It's too compartmentalized. So you basically have a chain of guys, 100 guys long in a chain, several chains, hauling 60-pound boxes of frozen food for a day and a half, and it just went nonstop. So we had to get all that off of there before it melted, basically, thawed. And then I was in E Division. There's two rates in E Division, electricians and IC-men. So the electricians mainly had the responsibility of pulling all the motors, but we helped them do that. So we did that, and we got the reefer room repaired. So we were delayed a couple days in Pearl, and then we went to Subic. And then at the time we went to the Philippines, well, it was pretty tense. They were actually killing sailors back then. So we were restricted to the base for most of the port visit, except for 1 day or 2 days. I think they let us off the base, and we could go as far as, I think, the end of Revolution Avenue or to a statue, if I remember right. So we went out, but we had to be back at midnight. And then we left, and that's where they painted our hull number gray. All the ships that went through Subic got their hull numbers painted gray that were going to the Gulf. So if you look at pictures of the Wisconsin and the Missouri from the Gulf War, you'll see that the Missouri's hull number is gray and Wisconsin's white. It was a war paint thing, I guess, apparently somebody came up with it. So we went from the Philippines, we went to Thailand, and we spent 3 or 4 days in Thailand. And we went into Pattaya Beach, and then the nice thing that I remember about that was, of all the port visits I've been to, this was the one I signed up for a little rec tour, you know, like the rec officer would have a tour. So we, it was basically a bus from Pattaya Beach to Bangkok, Thailand, and a hotel room and a bus back. So it was up to you to figure out what you were going to do. We were supposed to stay downtown next to where the strip was. So we got a group of guys, we went, and I remember we drank all the beer before we got to Bangkok. We got to Bangkok and there was an argument about, no, you know, stay here. So we ended up not staying where we were supposed to. We went up like in the boonies somewhere in Bangkok. Bangkok's a huge city. So we didn't have any idea where we were. And luckily, one of the ladies that was on the tour group of the bus, I don't know how this happened. Either one of the guys said something to her or she volunteered, but she said that if we buy her dinner, she'll show us the city. So we took her up on that offer, and I think 11 of us guys went with her. So she took us to, she also worked at the Palace part-time. So the Palace was closed, but she got us into it. So we went through the Palace, and she explained all the different temples and the Buddhas and how they press the gold leaf on things for offerings, and that was really interesting. She took us to the flower market. She took us to the gold market. She took us to dinner at a place where she knew the owner, so we had like one of everything off the menu. So I remember eating these big prawns that were like, I don't know, like little mini lobsters almost. She took us to the strip, which, you know, was back then was what you did, although she didn't seem very comfortable with that. We didn't stay long. And then, so that was a really good experience, and I enjoyed that. So we left, after that we went back to Pattaya Beach, we got on a ship, we went to the Gulf, or we headed to the Gulf. We passed Singapore to the Straits of, I think it's Straits of Malacca, on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. We had a steel beach picnic on the back, where we kind of just have a lazy day on the ship, and cookouts, bands. So you can see Singapore as you're going through. I mean, you can literally, you probably could swim there. It's maybe 2 miles from the ship as you're going through. So that was a bit of a disappointment that we didn't get to stop in Singapore and go to the Gulf. Now normally the shipboard routine, when you're out to sea, you know, I get this a lot from people, what'd you guys do? Well, you generally worked 10 to 12 hour days in your area of responsibility. Like I was in aft IC, so we had preventive maintenance checks to do and fixing equipment, this, that, and the other. And then you'd have a watch every 4 hours, and it rotated, I think, counterclockwise through the time schedule. So you'd have, like, say, a 0800 to 1200 watch, and then the next one you'd have 0400 to 800, 0800, and then midnight to 4, balls to 4 is what we called it, and then 8 to 12, you know, so on and so forth, and we'd go backwards. So you might work, you know, from 7 was muster, and then you got off maybe, you know, for dinner was, I think, 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. And then you might have a watch 4 hours in the evening. So you might work 16-hour days. And then you got half a day off on Sunday. Sunday morning, you got a half a day off, unless you had watch. If you had watch, well, tough luck. Or if you crossed the international date line and it happened to be a Monday and you skipped Sunday and went to Tuesday, well, guess what? You didn't get that day off either. They didn't make up for that. Or if you went across and it happened to be Sunday twice, well, that's second Sunday you work. So we did a lot of work. And we did a lot of prep before we went to the Gulf. We went to San Diego, which I left that out. But we did a lot of firefighting, damage control prep. So we were pretty ready